My boss, Victoria Vance, is an ice queen by day. At night, she curls up in my arms and calls me by my first name like a prayer. It all made sense when I found the 2 bottles in her drawer. The pink pills suppressed her alter. The white ones strengthened her main personality. No wonder she was a monster in the office and a soft, clinging kitten at night. I secretly swapped the pink pills for vitamins. Her alter ego completely took over. Liam, she'd whisper, you have to take care of me forever now. In her journal, Victoria's true self raged. Liam Miller, you are a dead man. I just smiled, tore out the page, and burned it. She's my sweet, broken kitten now, and she's all mine. My direct supervisor, Victoria Vance, is a walking glacier. This morning, the sharp click-clack of her heels announced her approach to my desk. A file slapped down in front of me, landing with the finality of a steel plate. Redo this. I want it back by 3. Her voice was 10 degrees below zero. The margin of error is beyond my tolerance. Her lips, painted a severe shade of red, pressed into a thin line. She was immaculate in a black power suit, her hair pulled back without a single stray strand. When her eyes swept over me, they felt like a surgeon's scalpel. The entire department held its breath, terrified of getting caught in the blast radius. On my desk, the mark analysis I'd pulled an all-nighter to complete was bleeding with aggressive red ink. By 10 p.m., I was the only one left on the project team. Numbers swam before my eyes on the monitor. Finally, I finished the last page. Save. Shut down. I grabbed my jacket and headed for the elevator. The parking garage was dim and empty, bathed in a pale yellow light. Next to my car, a dark shape was curled up on the concrete. A black suit skirt. Victoria? She was hugging her knees, her face buried in her arms. Her shoulders trembled slightly. I moved closer. Ms. Vance. She snapped her head up. There were no tears, just a look of profound confusion and fragility. The moment she saw it was me, that vulnerability was washed away by a wave of pure, unadulterated joy. Liam, she cried out, her voice soft. She tried to stand, bracing herself on the ground, but wobbled precariously. I instinctively reached out to steady her. She threw herself into my arms, her hands wrapped tightly around my waist, her cheek rubbing against my chest. Liam, I waited so long for you. It's cold. Her words were muffled, punctuated by a sound like a contented kitten's purr. The woman who could give you frostbite with a single glance was gone. This fluffy-haired head was still nuzzling against me. Her warm breath seeped through my dress shirt. The same sharp fingernails that had gestured dismissively at my report all day were now softly clutching the back of my jacket. The sheer disconnect was staggering. Ms. Vance, are you okay? No. She buried her face deeper into my chest, her voice thick. So tired. My head's a little spinny. She sniffled loudly. And hungry. Was this human barnacle really the same person as my tyrannical director? I tried to keep my voice even. Let me take you home. Okay. She looked up instantly, her eyes glistening and impossibly bright. Her lips curved into a sweet, perfect smile. You're the best, Liam. She took my hand as if it were the most natural thing in the world and led me to my car. Her palm was soft and slightly cool. I cranked the heat in the car. She was quiet for a moment. She gave me an address in the Gold Coast, one of the most exclusive high-rises in the city. I stopped at a red light and glanced at her. She was hugging my right arm, her head resting on my shoulder. Her breathing was even, her eyelids fluttering. She was unbelievably docile. Victoria? I ventured, testing her name. She snuggled against my shoulder without opening her eyes. Don't leave me. Liam. Her voice was a slurred whisper, almost a dream. She was a complete stranger from the battle axe I reported to. I pulled up in front of her luxury apartment building. Her eyes opened to a slit. She recognized where we were and tightened her grip on my arm. We're home. Yeah. Are you? Going to walk me up? She tilted her face up, her expression like that of a small animal terrified of being abandoned. Can you make it on your own? No, she said immediately, shaking her head. The hallway is dark. There could be bad guys. I'll be scared. This building had private, direct-to-apartment elevators. I saw the dependence in her eyes and didn't call her bluff. All right, she beamed, pushed the car door open, and stumbled out, still a little unsteady. The biometric lock clicked open. The apartment was a testament to cold, hard luxury, all black, white, and chrome. It was vast and empty, lacking any sense of a human touch. The foyer lights flickered on automatically. I had just closed the door behind us when she swayed, as if her energy had completely run out. I grabbed her arm to keep her from falling. She used the momentum to collapse back into my arms. Her face was pressed against my neck, her breath hot and ticklish on my skin. Liam, please don't go. It's late. The couch. You can just sleep on the couch for a little bit. She pleaded, her head tilted back. Her eyes were wet, like shimmering black obsidian. Her hands were still clenched in the fabric of my shirt. The memory of those same hands pointing out every flaw in my work felt like a scene from another lifetime. I slipped her arm over my shoulder. You need to get some rest. Her bedroom was massive. The vanity was covered in an army of expensive-looking bottles and jars. I helped her to the edge of the bed. Can you get ready by yourself? She nodded but didn't move. She just sat there, looking up at me. I sighed. I'll be in the living room. Don't. She grabbed my wrist, her nails digging into my skin. 5 minutes. I'll only be 5 minutes. Just don't leave. Her eyes were filled with the same panic, as if I were about to vanish into thin air. Where was the woman who had mercilessly torn my proposal to shreds? The sound of running water came from the bathroom. I stood in the middle of the cavernous living room. The black leather sofa looked cold and unforgiving. Beyond the floor-to-ceiling windows, the city lights of Chicago glittered. At my feet, a designer handbag lay on its side on a silk rug where she must have dropped it. Next to it, a black leather key pouch had fallen out. Something was bulging from inside it. I knelt and picked it up. A small object slid out. Click! It was a small pill bottle. It was a tiny, opaque, frosted plastic bottle with no label. The cap was loose, and a few pills had spilled out onto the soft rug. One was a pale, candy-like pink. The other was pure white. I hesitated for a second before picking them up. Inside the bottle, I could feel a faint, scratchy inscription. It was shallow, but I could make it out with my fingertip. I held it up to the light from the window. Morning, kill the kitten. The morning pill? Kill the kitten? My eyes fell on the white pill. What about the pink one? Kill the kitten. My fingers unconsciously rolled the smooth surface of the pink pill. A faint, almost imperceptible scent of something cold like mint hit my nose. My chest tightened for no reason. That scent, it was strangely familiar. Where had I smelled it before? Liam, a bright voice called out. I turned around. Victoria was standing in the bedroom doorway. Her severe makeup was gone, revealing a pale, bare face. Her damp hair was down, framing her face. She was wrapped in a large, fluffy white bathrobe. Her feet were bare, her toes peeking out from the hem. She was hugging an enormous, fluffy teddy bear, so big it obscured most of her body. Only a pair of bright, shining eyes were visible, fixed on me. She looked like some kind of harmless little animal, a complete mismatch for the pink pill labeled Kill the Kitten. She came running over, her bare feet silent on the rug. The teddy bear was practically her height. Look, it's Mr. Snuggles. He says thank you for not leaving. She held the bear out in front of her like a shield, her tone that of a child showing off. This was not the same person from the office. He said that. She nodded vigorously. Yep, and Mr. Snuggles never lies. Her eyes curved into crescents. I held up the key pouch. Is this yours? Her gaze fell on the pink pill in my palm, and a flicker of panic crossed her face. It was fleeting, but it was there, like a startled rabbit. She shook her head frantically. No, that's not mine. She reached out to snatch it away. The pill slipped through her fingers. There's no label. I watched as the color drained from her face. What is this? Vita. Vitamins. She stammered, hugging Mr. Snuggles tighter, almost burying her face in its fur. Her voice was unsteady. For memory. Yeah, I've been pulling so many late nights on the proposal. I'm exhausted. It was a classic clumsy lie. Wasn't she the one making me pull the late nights? The faint, cold scent of the pill lingered on my fingertips. That unique, medicinal smell was definitely not a vitamin. Liam, she peeked out cautiously from behind the bear. You believe me, right? A film of moisture gathered in her eyes. She looked like she would shatter at a touch. I believe you. I tucked the pills and the bottle back into the key pouch and handed it to her. She visibly relaxed, clutching the pouch tightly. Thank you, Liam. Her voice was soft again. So, good night. She inched a little closer. Are you really going to sleep on the couch? A tiny flame of hope flickered in her eyes. Yes. Oh, the flame went out. She looked down, hugging her bear, the picture of misery in her bare feet. She took 2 steps toward the bedroom, then stopped and turned back. Liam. Yeah, I really like your name. Liam, she whispered, as if savoring a piece of candy. A faint blush colored her cheeks. See you tomorrow. She spun around and disappeared into the bedroom, closing the door softly behind her. I woke up at 4 in the morning, dying of thirst. The living room was dark, save for the hazy glow of the city lights filtering through the window. I drank a glass of water, the cool liquid soothing my throat. As I put the glass down, I noticed Victoria's bedroom door was slightly ajar. Was she that restless a sleeper? Driven by a curiosity I couldn't explain, I tiptoed over. The room was dark. I could see her silhouette, curled up in the middle of the massive bed, clutching that giant bear. She looked peaceful. My gaze drifted to the desk by the window. It was minimalist. Next to a pen holder, a thick, leather-bound journal lay open. In the faint light from the window, I could make out forceful, severe handwriting. The handwriting of the daytime Victoria. A voice in my head screamed at me to stop. My feet moved on their own. I silently picked up the journal. Standing in the dim shaft of light from the doorway, I flipped through the pages. Most of it was work schedules and project plans, the script radiating an intense pressure. Then I landed on a page. A long, furiously scrawled entry hit me like a physical blow. Every stroke of the pen was filled with a deep-seated rage, almost tearing through the paper. The nib had broken through the page in several places. October 18th, 2024. Overcast. That goddamn coward came out again. My consciousness felt like it was sinking into a frozen sea, my limbs paralyzed. By the time I was aware, it was dark. She was hugging that cheap stuffed animal and whispering that disgusting drivel to Liam Miller, that low-level subordinate. Liam? The humiliation. Who the hell is he? A useless hack who can't even get a market model right. How could my body react so strongly to that pathetic, needy affection? The shame. I have to double DR. Chin's prescription. Increase the dosage of the morning pills. Must keep the pink bottle on me at all times. Continue taking the evening pills, white bottle on the nightstand. Without fail. I have to completely crush that weak, pathetic parasite. She shouldn't exist. I will not allow such a humiliating weakness in my life. She is a stain. She must be erased. My heart hammered against my ribs. All the blood in my body seemed to rush to my head. So there wasn't just one bottle. The pink pills, morning, were for the daytime. The white pills, evening, were for the night. The pink pills suppressed the alter ego, the kitten. The white pills strengthened the host personality, the tyrant. So the sweet kitten, who clung to me and called my name, was being systematically and brutally exterminated with drugs by the daytime Victoria. In the margins of the next few pages were frantic, messy scribbles in a much smaller, almost illegible hand. They were the alter's desperate attempts to fight back. Mean lady. Locks me up. So dark and cold. Scared. Liam's hand. Warm. Want to stay longer. Don't make me go. The medicine is so bitter. Spit it out. Liam. Find me. I love how Liam smells. Like soap. Want to sleep holding him. Please don't take the pink pill. Please. Sister. It hurts. I can't breathe. My heart felt like it was being squeezed by those crooked, pleading words. So that was what the scent on the pill meant. The alter ego was crying for help with the last of her strength. I silently put the journal back. I returned to the cold sofa in the living room. Outside, the city was beginning to glow with the first gray light of dawn. A bold, almost insane idea began to grow in my mind. Over the next few days, I observed Victoria like a scientist. 9:05 a.m. the rhythmic click-clack of her heels on the marble floor echoed down the hall, right on schedule. Click, clack, click. The sound was precise, cold, and utterly in control. She walked straight into her office without a glance at anyone. Thump. The door closed. 10 minutes later, my desk phone buzzed. 3 ice-cold words. Miller. My office. I pushed the door open. The smell of strong coffee mingled with a faint, almost imperceptible scent of cool mint. It was the pink pills. The smell was stronger today. She sat behind her enormous desk, the tip of her pen slashing across my revised report. She didn't look up. Where is the data to support last Friday's numbers? The foundational formula for the Q3 year-over-year projection. Your KPIs for tracking competitor movement next quarter are ill-defined. Redo it. By in a day. The report was tossed back at me. The number of red circles was slightly less than last time. Ms. Vance, the model's foundation was validated in Q4 of last year. She finally lifted her gaze. Her eyes were as sharp as ice picks. Last year, the corner of her mouth twitched into a humorless smile. Are you living in the Stone Age? In a market this volatile, you're citing last year? Redo it, or I'll find someone who can. The pressure was immense, almost a physical force. The scent of the pink pills hung in the air. I picked up the report. My eyes fell on the ring finger of her left hand. A simple, elegant platinum band. I had found it on the rug in her living room that night. A very understated design. She noticed my gaze, and her fingers curled slightly, but her expression remained a perfect mask of indifference. Any other questions? No. I turned to leave. I had the ring with me, turning it over and over in my pocket. The cool, hard metal felt solid. There seemed to be a tiny letter engraved on the inside. Just as the door was closing, I thought I heard her take a tiny, sharp breath, like she was fighting off a wave of discomfort. A few nights later, my phone buzzed incessantly, waking me up. 1:30 .m.an unknown number. The second I answered, a trembling, tearful voice came through the line. Liam, there's thunder again. Really, really big thunder. Mr. Snuggles is terrified. He won't stop shaking. In the background, a low rumble rolled across the sky, followed by the howl of wind against a window. I'm hugging Mr. Snuggles, but he's still shaking. What do I do, Liam? The helplessness in her voice was so real it made my chest ache. Is he scared for you? I asked, rubbing my temples as I sat up. It was raining here, too. Yes, she sniffled. Mr. Snuggles is a scaredy cat, even more than me. He needs you to come protect us. The logic was flawless. Give me the address. You're really coming. The surprise in her voice was almost explosive. Yeah. Yay, you're the best, Liam. The tears were instantly replaced by pure elation. Half an hour later, I was standing once again in front of that cold, imposing apartment door. I had barely pressed the doorbell when the door was yanked open a crack. A small hand shot out and grabbed my wrist with surprising strength. It was cool and damp. She pulled me inside. Bang! The door was slammed shut and locked behind me. Only a dim wall sconce was lit in the foyer. She was wearing a strawberry print onesie, her feet bare on the floor. She was clutching that giant teddy bear for dear life. One of its button eyes was sewn on crooked, giving it a comical look. Mr. Snuggles, she announced solemnly to the bear's ear. See, Liam's here. We're safe now. Then she looked up at me, her eyes shining in the dim light. He's thanking you. What's he saying? I couldn't help but play along. He's saying. She pushed the bear's face toward me, leaning close to its lopsided eye. That you smell like blankets dried in the sun. It's nice. She blushed. A blinding fork of lightning suddenly split the night sky, illuminating the entire living room in a flash of white. It was followed immediately by a deafening crash. Boom! The thunderclap was so loud it felt like it was right on top of us. Her scream was cut short, turning into a whimper. Her entire body convulsed as if she'd been electrocuted. Both she and the teddy bear launched themselves at me with incredible force. I was caught off guard, stumbling back against the door. She clung to me like a terrified koala, her arms and legs wrapped tightly around me. Her face was buried in my neck, and her body was shaking like the last leaf in an autumn storm. The thunder, it got inside. Her teeth were chattering. The giant stuffed bear was squashed between us, its soft form transmitting the intensity of her fear. No, it's just loud. But the building is shaking. Liam, can't you feel it? It's shaking. Her warm tears soaked the collar of my t-shirt. That's you shaking. I raised my hand, hesitated for a moment, then gently placed it on her back, which was tense and rigid. Through the soft cotton of her pajamas, I could feel the tremors running through her bones. The Victoria Vance who treated her subordinates' mistakes like personal insults, whose words were weapons, was now like a lost cub abandoned by the world. The stark contrast was strangely compelling. "You're okay." At those two simple words, the rigid spine beneath my palm seemed to relax, just a fraction. The thunder slowly subsided, replaced by the gentle drumming of rain against the windows. Her tense body gradually softened, but she didn't loosen her grip on me or the bear. Her face was still buried in my shoulder. The warmth of her breath tickled my skin. "Mr. Snuggles says, thank you for protecting us." Her voice was muffled. "He wants to invite you to sit on the couch." She finally lifted her head. Her eyes were red, like a rabbit's, and tear tracks still stained her cheeks. But she managed a small, watery, ingratiating smile. "It's raining so hard outside. Your shoulder is all wet." She reached out and lightly touched the damp spot on my shirt where she'd cried. Her fingertips were cool. "He would feel bad," she said, gesturing with her chin toward the bear. Only a single floor lamp was on in the living room, casting a warm, yellow glow. We sat on the soft leather sofa, separated by the enormous teddy bear. She hugged the bear, peeking at me over its head with wide, blinking eyes. "Liam," she began softly, "are you hungry?" "No." "Oh." She looked a little disappointed, unconsciously twisting one of the bear's ears. "Are you thirsty? There's milk in the fridge. Strawberry flavored." "I'm not thirsty." "Oh." The bear's ear was getting mangled. "Well," her eyes suddenly lit up with an idea. "How about a story? Mr. Snuggles hasn't heard a new story in a long time." Her gaze was earnest. I looked silently at the bear. It's lopsided. I stared back innocently. "What kind of story?" She tilted her head, tapping her chin. "About a really, really strong big bad wolf." And then, she suddenly broke into a grin, her eyes crinkling. "The big bad wolf finds a little turtle hiding in its shell, spying on him. And the little turtle is very, very scared of the wolf." "No way," she immediately countered, scooting closer with the bear. "The little turtle just really likes watching the big bad wolf, because the big bad wolf is handsome. The wolf ignores her, so the little turtle follows him in secret." She narrated with animated excitement, her logic leaping all over the place. I listened quietly. The warm light, the sound of the rain outside, her soft, rambling story. Time seemed to slow down, to thicken. Her voice grew quieter and quieter, her eyelids heavy. The story dissolved into mumbled phrases. "The little turtle wants to tell the big bad wolf. Strawberry milk is the best, but scared he'll eat her." Her head lolled to the side. Leaning against the fluffy bear, she fell asleep. Her gentle breath stirred the fine hairs on her forehead. Her home office. The door was ajar. The computer was still on, its screen casting a faint, ghostly light. An encrypted document was open. It was a log of her private emails. The recipient was Dr. Evelyn Shun, the domain suggesting an overseas medical research institute. The email started with a formulaic status update, but a few lines caught my eye. "The frequency of the anomaly's appearances has indeed increased without pharmaceutical intervention, particularly after recent contact with a specific stimulus, the individual identified as L.M. However, control remains unstable, accompanied by mild somatic rejection symptoms, dizziness, transient weakness. I recommend proceeding as planned with the second stage of deep neural intervention next quarter. Objective: complete separation of the non-host personality structure to ensure final stabilization of core consciousness." Neural intervention, deep separation. A chill snaked its way up my spine. Dr. Shun wasn't treating her. She was helping the host, Victoria, systematically eliminate the alter. The little anomaly who was scared of thunder, who got hungry, who loved strawberry milk and cuddled a teddy bear. They were going to dispose of her like she was trash. My gaze shifted back to the discreet, built-in medicine cabinet in the corner of the room. Inside, the pink bottle, morning, was almost empty. The white bottle, evening, was still mostly full. Beside them lay a torn-open courier envelope. An all-English pharmaceutical order form had fallen out. The letterhead read, Dr. Evelyn Shun, The ordered medication was listed as tetrahydrolumitine hydrochloride, new formula ver 2, stabilizer and inhibitor, pink. A ridiculously complex chemical name. A note in smaller font below read, formula upgrade V3. 2, crucial agent for deep suppression and separation process, pink pill. Separation. Crucial agent. At the very bottom of the order, a warning was highlighted in bold red text. High priority for next phase, schedule confirmed. Neurointervention in early September. Early September. That was less than 2 weeks away. My fingertips traced the cool edge of the cabinet. The kill day for the kitten was fast approaching. At the project gala, the private room was filled with dim lighting and loud chatter. Victoria was, without a doubt, the center of attention. A perfectly tailored burgundy dress accentuated her sharp, commanding presence. She was laughing with a client, her smile perfect, her gaze precise, just as unforgiving as when she was chewing someone out. I was standing in a corner. I picked up a glass of champagne and casually walked past her table. With a slight, deliberate stumble, half a glass of orange-red liquid sloshed out. It landed perfectly on the beige handbag she had slung over the back of her chair. The stain bloomed instantly across the expensive leather. "Oh my God, I am so sorry," I said, my voice pitched with the perfect amount of shock and remorse. Every eye in the room turned to us. Victoria spun around. She saw her ridiculously expensive bag, now ruined. The perfect smile froze on her face. The look in her eyes was cold enough to kill. The kill the kitten persona was practically clawing its way out. "Miller," she ground out, her teeth clenched. "It's fine." She forced out, the words strained. "Mr. Henderson," she said, turning to the marketing manager, her tone leaving no room for argument. "Get someone with experience in emergency handbag restoration over here. Now." Henderson looked baffled. "Cleaning. Leather first aid." Victoria's temple throbbed. "Hurry." A few colleagues scrambled into action, making calls, creating a small pocket of chaos. In less than 3 minutes, she was being escorted away from the main table to a private powder room to deal with the bag. The handbag itself remained on the empty chair, diagonally across from me. The key pouch, the one with the pink pills, was just visible at the edge of the open bag. Well, I'd spilled the drink. I'd felt a hard object inside. It had to be the pill bottle. Amid the boisterous toasts and the concerned chatter about Victoria's bag, I stood up and walked around the back of the chair. Feigning to straighten my tie, which had been knocked askew by my stumble, my fingers dipped into her open handbag at a sharp, hidden angle. I pinched the edge of the cool leather key pouch. In a fraction of a second, a flick of my wrist was all it took. The small black pouch slid silently into the deep cuff of my suit jacket. I locked myself in a bathroom stall. I quickly pulled out the key pouch and opened it. The pink bottle was there, just as I thought. Only a few pills were left at the bottom. I unscrewed the cap and tipped the tiny pink pills into my palm. The cold, minty scent filled the small space. From my other pocket, I took out an identical frosted bottle I had prepared weeks ago. Inside were crushed and reformed pieces of a pink multivitamin tablet. They looked almost identical and had a faint, sour, vitamin-like smell. I palmed the real pills and poured the fake ones into the original bottle. I screwed the cap on tight and gave it a little shake. The rattle was almost exactly the same. I tucked the bottle back deep inside the black key pouch and zipped it shut. The whole operation took less than 3 minutes. I walked back into the banquet hall as if nothing had happened. Victoria wasn't back yet. A few executives were milling around the head table, which now felt conspicuously empty. A moment later, she returned. Her bag had been cleaned, but a large damp patch remained. Her face was a thundercloud. She looked like she was barely containing a volcanic eruption. She didn't look at me. She sat down, her eyes scanning the table before landing on her bag. She quickly unzipped it, her hand diving inside, searching for something. A few seconds later, her fingers closed around the key pouch. I saw her shoulders relax slightly. She squeezed it, feeling its thickness and the hard shape inside, confirming it was still there. Only then did she zip the bag shut. But her brow remained furrowed. Maybe it was the ruined bag, or maybe it was something else. For the rest of the evening, the icy pressure radiating from her kept everyone at a safe distance. After the gala, the night air was cool. Victoria stood by the curb, waiting for her driver. The expensive gown made her look tall, but incredibly rigid. I hung back a few steps, pretending to look at my phone, but my peripheral vision was locked on her. A black sedan pulled up smoothly. She opened the door. Just as she was about to get in, the hand holding the door wavered, just for a fraction of a second. It looked like a sudden dizzy spell. Her body swayed slightly. Her other hand shot out to brace herself on the car's roof. The recovery was instant, almost unnoticeable. She straightened up immediately, her eyes darting around warily, checking if anyone had seen her moment of weakness. I stared down at my dark phone screen, which reflected her face, quickly hardening back into its usual mask as she shut the car door. Over the next few days, the door to the director's office seemed to open more frequently. Victoria would come out to get water, to go to the finance department, to personally pick up a file from the mailroom downstairs. Her stride was as confident and powerful as ever. But I noticed tiny changes. When she refilled her water bottle, her grip was tighter than usual, her knuckles white. After signing a document, she would slam the pen down on the desk with more force than necessary. Once, when she turned from the mail lockers, her brow was furrowed, and she gave her head a little shake, as if trying to clear it. The most obvious sign came after a project review meeting. The senior executives had just left, and the rest of us were still gathering our things. Victoria was standing by the projector screen, her hands braced on the conference table as she gave follow-up instructions in her usual cold tone. The entire proposal is fundamentally flawed. Your thinking is rigid. Miller, your section. Her voice cut off abruptly. She whipped around, turning her back to us. I saw her shoulders heave, just once, almost imperceptibly. It looked like she was choking back something. Then, she quickly pulled a handkerchief from her pocket and pressed it to her mouth. A muffled, suppressed, gagging sound, short and dry, was clearly audible. The entire conference room went dead silent. Every single eye was fixed on her rigid back. She straightened up and lowered the handkerchief, her movements as composed and authoritative as ever, as if that brief lapse had never happened. When she turned back to face us, there wasn't a trace of discomfort on her face. In fact, her eyes were even colder, sharper than before, sweeping across the room like blades. "What are you looking at?" Nothing better to do. Her voice was glacial, a clear warning. "Do I need to repeat the problems I just outlined?" Everyone immediately looked down, pretending to be busy shuffling papers and packing laptops. The only sounds in the room were the rustle of paper and the soft clicks of closing computers. She walked out, her spine ramrod straight, the rhythm of her heels never faltering. But I saw it. As her hand closed around the doorknob, her knuckles were white from the force of her grip, and her hand was trembling. I was working late on a Saturday, rebuilding the quarterly model she had eviscerated. The office was deserted, the only sound the clatter of my keyboard. Around sunset, the door to her office creaked open. Victoria stood in the doorway. She wasn't wearing one of her power suits. Instead, she had on a soft, loose-fitting cream-colored cashmere sweater and simple gray lounge pants. Her long hair was pulled back in a messy bun, with a few stray strands framing her face. She wore no makeup. Her skin was so pale it was almost translucent. But it was her eyes that were completely different. They were foggy, vulnerable, like someone who had just woken up. Like a lost child. She leaned against the doorframe, her bare feet on the cold floor. Her gaze swept blankly across the empty office before finally landing on me. Her eyes lit up. It was a look of pure, undisguised dependence. She stumbled as she ran toward me. "Liam." She practically fell against my chair, her arms wrapping around my neck, her face buried in my shoulder. "I woke up, and I couldn't find you. I was so scared." Her voice was thick with sleep and fear. "I thought you left me." Her warm breath tickled my neck. Her body was soft, boneless. She smelled faintly of soap. This was the first time the kitten had appeared at the office. She clung to me, refusing to let go, mumbling incoherently. "So hungry. I wanted to find you yesterday to get that cheesy, stringy, round thing." Her fingers made a clumsy, circular motion in the air. "Pizza." "Yes," she nodded eagerly. "You said you'd take me after work, but I waited and waited at home. And it got dark, and you didn't come." Her lower lip trembled. "Mr. Snuggles, and I had to share the bread from the fridge. It was so hard." The warm, soft feel of her body, her utter dependence. It all pointed to one undeniable fact. The vitamin pills in the pink bottle had done their job. The carefully suppressed kitten was fighting back now that the drugs were gone. She was even starting to bleed into the daytime. The territory once exclusively controlled by the host, Victoria. I took her to a quiet Italian restaurant near the office with large windows overlooking the streetlights and sycamore trees. I ordered the cheese-loaded pizza she'd been rambling about, along with a small bowl of cream of mushroom soup. Her eyes were shining. She clumsily but enthusiastically battled the long strings of melted cheese with a knife and fork. A small smudge of tomato sauce appeared at the corner of her mouth. "Slow down." I handed her a napkin. She took it and wiped her mouth messily, her eyes still glued to the pizza. "This is so good. So much better than hard bread." She speared a piece with a thick crust and held it up to my mouth. "You have to try it, Liam." Her eyes were filled with the simple joy of sharing. I took a bite. She smiled, satisfied, and took a huge bite herself, her cheeks puffed out. She looked like a child whose greatest wish had just been granted. The city lights began to glow outside. The soft restaurant lighting made her features seem even more gentle. Halfway through her meal, she suddenly put her fork down, a puzzled look on her face. "Liam, yeah, do you remember? There used to be a really mean big bad wolf." "Here we go again." "Which one?" "The one that wasn't scared of thunder or rain." She stirred her soup, her brow furrowed. "I feel like I haven't seen her around in a long time." Her tone was hesitant, confused. "Is that a good thing?" She tilted her head, thinking. "I don't know. But when the wolf was here, the apartment always felt so cold, and she would lock Mr. Snuggles away. She wouldn't let me hug him. And she was always making me take this really, really bitter medicine." Her face scrunched up as if recalling the taste. "It was so bitter, it made Mr. Snuggles cry," she emphasized. "She was mean." Then she hesitated again. "But," her voice dropped. "Sometimes, I think maybe she wasn't so bad." She looked at me, bewildered. "Do you think Mr. Snuggles is lying to me?" Her gaze was pure and lost, like a shattered puzzle. The line between the kitten and Victoria was beginning to blur in her fragmented consciousness. 38 after dinner, the warm summer night air greeted us. She took my hand naturally, her fingers soft and cool in mine. "Liam, can we walk home? It's not close." "I don't mind walking," she insisted, swinging our joined hands like a child. "Besides," she leaned in closer, "I just want to spend more time with you." She wasn't paying attention to the traffic. As we crossed a small side street without a crosswalk, an electric scooter zipped past, dangerously close. The sudden rush of wind made her flinch violently. She ducked behind me like a startled rabbit, her hands gripping my arm tightly. "It's gone." "Okay," she peeked out, confirming the danger had passed. But she didn't let go. She kept her arm linked through mine as we continued walking, that unguarded, dependent smile returning to her face. 39 a week later, I had a one-on-one meeting with Victoria to present a proposal for an international partnership. When I pushed open her office door, I was hit by the overwhelming smell of coffee mixed with a new, intensely sharp minty scent. It was the smell of the pink pills, but 100 times stronger, almost acrid. She was sitting with her back to me, facing the massive floor-to-ceiling window. The sky outside was a dreary gray. Only a single, dim lamp was on, plunging the room into shadow. The huge leather chair almost swallowed her whole. I couldn't see her face, only one hand resting on the armrest. Her nails, painted a fierce burgundy, were curled into a tight fist, her knuckles white. "Ms. Vance." I closed the door, and the medicinal smell became suffocating. The figure in the chair didn't move or speak. The air was thick, stagnant. The only sound was the faint, rapid whisper of her breathing. I tapped the file on her desk. The revised proposal. "Leave it on the desk." Her voice was a low, hoarse rasp, like sandpaper on wood. It was nothing like her usual cold, crisp tone. 40, I had just put the file down. "Get out." The two words were a command, weak but absolute. The chair slowly swiveled around. In the dim light, her face was a mask of shadows. She wore no makeup. Her skin was as white as paper, with dark, bruised-looking circles under her eyes. Her lips were colorless, chapped and peeling. A sheen of cold sweat covered her forehead. Her eyes were unfocused, struggling to lock onto me. But beneath the haze was a look of desperate, cornered animal rage and defiance. Her body seemed to sink into the massive chair, as if she were being crushed by an invisible weight. Her right hand was clenched around something. It was the white pill bottle, the one for the evening pills. The cap was off. The overwhelming minty smell was coming from the open bottle. She was overdosing on the host-strengthening pills meant for nighttime, trying to fight back, trying to force her own consciousness to the surface, but the side effects were clearly devastating. Her eyes struggled to focus on my face. Her lips moved silently, as if she were trying to curse me, but only a garbled, breathy sound came out. The hand clutching the white bottle spasmed, her knuckles turning a deathly white. Finally, with an immense, agonizing effort, she lifted her other hand. Her index finger pointed toward the door. It trembled violently. One sharp, final, irrefutable gesture of dismissal. Then her eyes closed, as if that simple movement had drained her of her last ounce of strength. Only the deep, pained crease between her brows remained, a silent testament to the brutal, unwinnable war raging inside her. 42, a few nights later, my phone buzzed. It was her number again, but when I answered, it was an unfamiliar, frantic young woman's voice. "Hello, is this Liam Miller? This is Maria, Miss Vance's housekeeper. Can you please come over right away?" In the background, I heard the jarring sound of shattering glass and a muffled, agonized cry. "Miss Vance, she's in a really bad way. She's locked herself in the bathroom, and she keeps screaming your name. She's breaking things. Her hand is bleeding. We can't get her to open the door." My heart sank like a stone. I was out the door in seconds. The apartment door was unlocked. The young housekeeper, Maria, was waiting, her face pale with fear. "Mr. Miller, please, you have to do something." She pointed at the closed master bathroom door. Through the heavy wood, I could hear horrifying, violent banging sounds. It sounded like something heavy being slammed repeatedly against tile or marble. Mixed with the crashing were suppressed, guttural snarls of pain, like a caged animal. "Get out! Kill it! You can't come out. This is mine." It was Victoria's voice, but torn apart, raw, and filled with a desperate violence I'd never heard before. Let me out! Liam, save me." Another voice, faint, choked with sobs, suddenly pierced through the rage. It was the dying whimper of the kitten. 44-inch Victoria. I slammed my fist on the door. "Open the door." The banging stopped instantly. Dead silence. A few seconds later, Liam. The crying voice erupted, sharp and ecstatic. "Liam, save me. Let me out. Miller, you dare." A furious roar drowned out the smaller voice. "There is no Liam Miller in here. There's only you and me, you goddamn coward." "BM," the sound of a fist hitting the door. "Don't you dare open it. Are you trying to get us both killed?" "Open." "Liam, shut up, please. Mean lady. It hurts. You brought this on yourself. Traitor, coward." It sounded like two wild animals were tearing each other apart inside. The sounds of a physical struggle, impacts, muffled grunts, sharp cries of pain, and desperate sobbing all blended together. 45, I kicked the door, hard, right next to the lock. Once, twice. The lock groaned in protest. Crack! The door flew open. The scene was devastating. The bathroom was bathed in a harsh, sterile light. The large mirror and the glass doors of the vanity were shattered. Shards of glass, drops of blood, and water covered the floor. Victoria was kneeling on the cold tiles, her back to me, her entire body shaking uncontrollably. Her silk burgundy robe was torn open, revealing a thin slip underneath. One arm hung limply at her side. A deep gash on her forearm was bleeding profusely, staining her sleeve and the floor beneath her. Her other hand was clenched around something. It was a small white pill bottle. The cap was gone. A few white pills lay scattered in the pool of her own blood. 46, she whipped her head around, the movement shockingly fast. Her face was a mess of tears and saliva, but her eyes were wild with a terrifying, chaotic energy. The pain and rage had twisted her beautiful features into a grotesque mask. She stared at me, her lips trembling. "The pills," she rasped, her voice like a broken machine. "It was you." Her eyes instantly turned bloodshot. "You switched. My pills." Every word was laced with bone-deep hatred and ice. "Didn't you?" She suddenly let out a piercing shriek. "Didn't you? Liam Miller." The hand holding the white bottle shot up, and with the last of her strength, she hurled it at me. The bottle flew through the air in a pale arc. "Go to hell!" As she screamed, a look of utter despair washed over her face. Her body went limp. She pitched forward, collapsing face down onto the cold, bloody tiles. She was unconscious. 47, the hospital emergency room hallway was sterile and blindingly white. The smell of disinfectant was overpowering. The red light above the operating room door was on. Maria had gone to the pharmacy. In my hand, I held a small, blood-stained piece of cardstock a doctor had given me. "We had to pry this from her hand when we were cleaning the wound," the ER doctor had said, his face grim. "The cut is deep, significant blood loss. The laceration damaged tendons and nerves in her forearm. It will require emergency surgery. The main concern is her brain activity. The scans show abnormally violent signals, like multiple consciousnesses in direct conflict. Neurology will have to determine the cause." I stared at the bloody card in my hand. It was covered in Victoria's familiar, vicious handwriting from the journal. But now, every letter was twisted and deformed, the strokes chaotic, written over and over. Every word radiated a hysterical, final breakdown. The anomaly won. She was hiding. She was fighting back this whole time. She used that bastard Liam Miller to get stronger. She was draining me. Below there was a chaotic mess of scratched out, rewritten curses. "Where are my pills? Why aren't they working? Who did this? It had to be Miller, that worthless subordinate. He won't. He won't." The ink trailed off in a long, weak smear. The last few lines were even more slanted and frantic, the pen running dry. "Consciousness is fracturing. My body isn't listening anymore. That thing is laughing. It's enjoying my collapse. Pills. Need the pills. Evening. One last chance. Or else. The core. Will. Sink." A single dark blot of ink marked the end. There was nothing more. 48, the heavy metal doors finally slid open. A nurse pushed a gurney out. Victoria lay perfectly still, her face a translucent white. It was hard to see the faint rise and fall of her chest beneath the oxygen mask. Her left forearm, visible above the blanket, was wrapped in thick bandages, with a hint of red seeping through. What was more striking was that her right hand was still clenched in a death grip around the small, empty white pill bottle. Her knuckles were white, as if it were the last piece of driftwood she'd grabbed before being pulled under. Even though the bottle was empty, even though the driftwood had already broken. "The patient is stable for now," the surgeon said, wiping sweat from his brow. "We reattached the severed tendons in her arm, but the recovery will take at least 3 months. She may have permanent loss of function and strength. The more serious issue is the extreme chaos in her nervous system." He held up a few brain scans, pointing to the dense, stormy peaks of electrical signals. Normal brain activity is like a piece of music. It has rhythm, peaks, and valleys. This is like several chainsaws cutting through a sheet of glass at the same time. It's chaotic, violent, and self-destructive. "Neurology suspected she had a severe dissociative disorder," he said, his eyes glancing at the bloody note in my hand. "It seems that whatever pharmaceutical intervention she was undergoing has failed catastrophically. The internal conflict wasn't resolved. It appears to have escalated dramatically at some point recently." He looked at the unconscious woman on the gurney with a complicated expression. At this point, trying to chemically suppress either personality could cause irreversible damage. Even a total collapse of her consciousness. He used the word from her note. It's like a ship being torn apart by storms coming from multiple directions at once. She needs time to rest. Her body will heal. But the damage to her mind. The doctor shook his head grimly. That's anyone's guess. 49, the VIP hospital room, was quiet, filled only with the rhythmic beeping of the monitor. Sunlight streamed through the window, casting dancing shadows of leaves on the beige curtains. Victoria was propped up in bed, her right forearm encased in a heavy cast and brace. Her face was still pale, her eyes unfocused, staring blankly at the swaying leaves outside. She looked like a newborn infant seeing the world for the first time, with a faint, dazed innocence. Maria sat by the bed, holding a small bowl of warm, soft-cooked porridge. She carefully lifted a spoonful to Victoria's lips. Victoria hesitated for a few seconds, then slowly opened her mouth, taking a tiny, tentative sip. Her movements were gentle, slow. There was no trace of her usual ice or aggression. Just yesterday, Maria had tried to feed her several times, only to have the bowl shoved away by Victoria's good hand. Once it had nearly spilled everywhere. But today she accepted it. 50, I walked to the door of the room with a bag of fruit, my footsteps soft. The door was ajar. I could hear Maria speaking to her in a low, gentle voice. "Ms. Vance, the doctor said you have to be very careful with your arm. Let it heal properly." "Oh," a soft voice replied. It was Victoria's voice, but stripped of all its sharp edges. It was quiet, filled with a simple, guileless curiosity. "Why is it so heavy?" She tilted her head, looking at her casted arm. She gently poked the edge of the plaster with her good hand. "Because it's protecting the bones inside while they get better," Maria explained patiently. "So, are the bones secretly growing back together right now?" "They are, like seeds under the ground. A little faster than that." She seemed to understand and nodded, her gaze returning to the leaves outside the window. 51, I gently pushed the door open. Victoria heard the sound and slowly turned her head. Her eyes landed on the bag of fruit in my hands. At first, they were blank. Then, slowly, a light began to flicker within them, like a dying ember being coaxed back to life. Finally, the light coalesced into a pure, brilliant smile that could melt honey. "Liam." The name left her lips in a soft rush. It wasn't loud, but it cut through the quiet room like a sunbeam, filled with absolute trust and an overwhelming, boundless joy. It was the sound of someone who had been lost in an endless maze and had finally found their one true landmark. She even tried to shift her body toward me, a movement that pulled at her injured arm. A slight frown creased her brow, but unlike the past few days, she didn't flinch in pain or lash out. She just kept her shining eyes fixed on me. It was a silent declaration. "Look, I found you." Maria looked from me to the unprecedented, radiant trust on Victoria's face, her mouth slightly agape, as if she were seeing this woman for the very first time. 52 2 weeks later, bright sunlight filled the living room of Victoria's apartment. The floor-to-ceiling windows looked out onto a lush summer garden. The heavy cast on her right arm had been replaced with a lighter, simpler sling. She was wearing a pale, pink loungewear set and, as always, hugging the giant, lopsided teddy bear. She was leaning against the sofa. I sat beside her, flipping through a company document. After a few minutes of comfortable silence, she spoke. "Liam, yeah, that really mean big bad wolf." She rested her head on the teddy bear. "Did she really go home?" Her voice was no longer filled with confusion, only a peaceful, childlike wonder, as if she were asking about a character in a fairy tale she'd heard long ago. "Yes," I said, not looking up from the report. I turned a page. She went home. Victoria was quiet for a moment, as if processing the answer. Then she buried her face deeper into the bear's soft fur and took a deep breath, a sigh of profound relief. In a tiny voice, as if sharing a secret only she and the bear could hear, she whispered. She was lost for so long. I'm glad she finally found her way. Her voice faded, swallowed by the lazy drone of cicadas in the afternoon sun. 53, I put the document down. My eyes fell on the thick, leather-bound journal on the coffee table, its edges worn and curled. Maria had found it in the back of a safe in Victoria's study while cleaning after she was discharged. When she had shown it to Victoria, she had just shaken her head blankly. She didn't recognize it. Now I picked up the journal. My thumb ran along the edge of the thick pages, stopping at the last one, the one scarred by the sharp pen nib, stained with the ink of her final, desperate moments. The host personality's last testament, written on the brink of her defeat. The core. Will. Sink. The twisted, frantic script was her last will. My fingers pinched the cool, stiff edge of the page. Gently, but with an unwavering, absolute finality, I pulled. Rip. A soft but sharp, clean sound. The page, soaked in all the host's venom and rage, separated from the binding. It was free. 54 on the kitchen stove. A blue flame danced silently. A breeze whispered through the screen door, carrying the fresh scent of summer greenery. I held the page by a corner and lowered it into the dancing flame. Whoosh! A bright orange point of light exploded at the corner of the paper. The flame greedily licked upward, consuming everything in its path. The edges of the paper blackened and curled. The dark blue ink the furious words. Miller, you did this. Worthless. Core. Sink. Every twisted letter that had carried so much hatred was incinerated, turning to black carbon, dissolving into a faint, distorted wisp of smoke. A few seconds later, the flame devoured the last corner. I released my grip. A final, blackened flake of paper, like a dead butterfly, fluttered down and landed on the cold stovetop. It glowed with a faint red ember for a second, then went dark. It was nothing but a tiny pile of fine, gray ash. The sharp, acrid smell of burnt paper filled the air for a moment before being swept away by the stronger, cleaner scent of summer pouring in through the window. The sharp, commanding voice that had vowed to kill the kitten was gone, turned to nothing. 55, I heard the soft shuffle of slippers in the living room. Victoria appeared in the kitchen doorway, hugging her bear. She sniffed the air, a puzzled look on her face. Liam, what's that burning smell? Nothing, I said, turning on the faucet and rinsing the stovetop. The water washed the tiny specks of ash away instantly. Just an old piece of paper. I burned it. The last trace was gone. Oh, she nodded, seemingly satisfied with the answer. Then her eyes lit up. She ran over, holding the bear. Liam, I want cold milk, strawberry flavored. She stood on her tiptoes, craning her neck to see the top shelf of the refrigerator. Her arm, still in its sling, did its best to hoist the bear up a little higher. Her voice was as sweet as honey. Mr. Snuggles said, he wants a little bit too. Her face was a picture of pure, unadulterated devotion. Not a single shadow remained.